Hey students, welcome to the last video on the muscular system, and in this video we're going to talk about muscle fatigue. You know, it's important that we work our muscles. If you don't work them out, then they are not going to maintain the size that they are. That's what's called muscle atrophy. Muscle atrophy means that the muscles get smaller and they lose tone. Tone is a normal, slow, small level of contraction that normally just is there all the time. And so you'll lose this if you're not using your muscles. You'll see atrophy very commonly in patients that are bedridden. And as people age, they also lose some tone in their muscle, so it appears more flaccid, or it will actually atrophy. So it's really important that you build up a habit of working out your muscles, either by doing some aerobic activity, although that doesn't really increase the muscle size. That aerobic activity is very good for building up your lung volume, your lung capacity, and how efficiently your lungs work. But, you know, lifting weights and doing calisthenics or isometric activities do help build up the size of your muscles. But regardless of what you're doing, your muscles will become fatigued. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that in this video. The first thing that's going on when you are exercising a lot is that your muscles start getting worked very strenuously. Now, remember that you have to have a couple of things going on to maintain the energy level in your muscles. You need to have a steady supply of glucose, which is the monomer or the simple sugar that your cells use to create oxygen. And oxygen is necessary to do the normal activities that you're doing when you're exercising and working out. So you need oxygen and you need glucose. Well, if you don't have enough glucose coming in with your food before you exercise, your body has a way of storing extra glucose that you've eaten during the day, but it doesn't store a ton of that stuff. It does store it in the form of glycogen in your muscles and liver, but if you run out of that, then your body is going to go into a different way of creating energy. And remember, too, that if you don't have enough ATP, which is that energy molecule that is created from glucose by your mitochondria, then the muscles will not be able to, those myofilaments will not be able to form the cross bridges. Or you've got the actin, which is the thin, and the myosin, which is the thick filament. And remember that whenever the myosin binds to actin, it shortens it, which is contraction of the muscles. And if you don't have ATP for this, then it's not going to work. Okay, so that's when muscles are starting to get fatigued and they don't have the ATP because they're running out of glucose, the original energy source. When that happens, then your body will switch to a different kind of energy production called anaerobic respiration. Using glucose and oxygen, the best way, when you have oxygen, more and more glucose can be made for ATP. That's aerobic respiration. But when you run out of oxygen, because you're working so strenuously, then your body switches to anaerobic respiration. And that's where it can use the glucose to create ATP, but it doesn't do it in the presence of oxygen. And you do get a buildup of a chemical called lactic acid, which is typically what makes your muscles sore. You don't produce as much ATP during anaerobic respiration as you do for aerobic respiration. So that is not a good way to maintain strenuous activity. So essentially, it's all about oxygen and an oxygen debt. If you have a difference between the amount that is available to you and the amount that is required, you sort of get out of breath, literally, and also your cells are getting, and I put that in quotes because your cells can't get out of breath, but they're running out of oxygen. So that oxygen is pretty much key in the muscle fatigue that you experience when you're strenuously working out. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, since, you know, a lot of you are involved in sports and lifting weights, and so you can kind of understand what's going on in your muscles now that you know a little bit about this. So this ends our videos on the muscular system. So your next activity is to do a Quizlet vocab review, and I will see you soon.